What's up, people? We spoke about audiences, how to find cold audiences. Now I want to talk about something that happens when you've found your cold audience, and you found a combination that works, and you've gone ahead with your marketing setup, your retargeting, and trying to convert people by retargeting them, and you have a certain set of custom audiences that are already interacting with your website. As I told you in the earlier examples, people who might have added to cart or initiated a checkout or done some behavioral activity on your website. So I'm going to talk about a certain trends and occurrences you will see when you proceed in your journey. So let's get right into it. All right, so we remember the circle. Now, getting into the territory where I spoke about, you will see this common scenario of audience overlap. What does that mean? What does audience overlap mean? Audience overlap basically means when two ad sets, the audiences are stored in ad sets. We've spoken about it earlier. When two ad sets in the same ad account are running to an intersection, or they both of them have a certain intersection between them, like you're seeing here. Let this be audience A, let this be audience B, and there's an intersection between them. And you're running ads to audience A, and you're running ads to audience B, and eventually since it's an auction, they end up competing within themselves. Now, how do you tackle such a scenario, and why do such scenarios happen? Now, these scenarios might happen when you're running an ad to Hindustan Times and running an ad to Scoop Whoop, and they have a certain intersection. I think about a few million people, or 8 million, as we earlier saw. There will be possibilities and times and scenarios where the two ad sets, both of your ad sets promoting probably the same brand from the same page, they will end up fighting with each other. What I mean by fighting is they'll end up competing against each other. They'll try to outbid each other. So this is a very common mistake, and you got to avoid that. And I'll show you how this mistake actually looks like in real life. How do you, in fact, avoid this sort of mistake? See, simply put, audience overlap is marketing to the same audience with different ad sets. As I just told you, the larger the overlap, the worse your campaigns will perform. Why will your campaigns suffer because of this? Because you're bidding against each other. I mean, your ad sets are bidding against each other. They are trying to outcompete, each other, and that makes absolutely no sense. Basically, you are paying money to defeat your own self, and from the other end, also you're paying money to defeat your own self. That's stupid. So this happens because ad sets from the same advertiser are going to end up to the same audience. This is because when ad sets from the same advertiser end up in the... Alright, so how do you avoid such a scenario? The answer legit lies in the problem itself. You simply avoid this by having different target audiences for different ad sets you're going to create. Now, let me use my pen and tablet to tell you how this may happen, okay? Let's go back to our Scoop Whoop and Hindustan Times example. Scoop Whoop and Hindustan Times. So I'm trying to target people who have an affinity with Scoop Whoop and people who have an affinity with Hindustan Times, and we know that both of these have a certain intersection. Let's just try to determine this intersection like this. This is my audience A, this is my audience B, and I'll tell you how Facebook approaches audience. So this entire thing must be in millions, okay? Let's give it a hypothetical number that this audience is 10 million, and let's say this audience is 5 million, okay? Now what happens is when you run an ad, okay? Basically what is running an ad? It's a creative that is shown to an audience, okay? So audience is the pathway where the creative moves. This creative goes all the way, it keeps showing to the audience. This is the audience. Okay, these are people, and this creative shows, when you run an ad, this creative is running across audiences, right? That's what's happening. And what is Facebook's job? The Facebook algorithm's job. Facebook algorithm's job is to determine who sees your creative next, who sees your ad next. That is how Facebook, ad engine works. It decides to who your creative should go based on the objective that you've set, and based on how the audience is reacting. So what happens is, let's say your audience is super big. Okay, these are 10 million people, and 10 million is a massive size. You probably got to spend a lot of money, I think at least a few lakhs to reach the whole of 10 million audience. And you don't necessarily spend that much initially or when you're starting a campaign. So what does Facebook do? When you leave Facebook to an audience, these 10 million people could be anyone who follows Scoop Whoop or Hindustan Times. I think it was Hindustan Times. Yeah. So what's going to happen is, when you've run an ad to this 10 million people, Facebook algorithm firstly divides this massive audience into pockets of audience. Pocket A, pocket B, pocket C, pocket D, pocket E, pocket F, all kind of pockets. Okay. Now, what happens is, initially, for the first 50 conversions could be anything. If you run an ad for traffic, the conversions would be link clicks. Facebook runs your ad to a certain audience, and based on the first 50 conversions is what it takes to actually just legit decide what trajectory to run your ad to. And eventually it limits your ad to a certain pocket. Okay, pocket B. So it's not the 10 million people that are seeing your ad. It is the pocket B that's seeing your ad. And what is the criteria? Let's say B dash. Okay, what is the criteria of this pocket B dash? Why did Facebook choose it? Based on certain affinity factors. Facebook thought, okay, you would, your audience and your page and your creative and your offering and your product and your business will make more sense to these kind of B dash kind of guys, which is a subset of the whole 10 million people, and these guys are reacting better to your creative. So the Facebook has limited it to this audience, for at least a few days or certain duration. Now let's say, since we know, that the 5 million audience, that is the Scoop Whoop audience, also has an intersection with the Hindustan Times audience. Okay, I'm not making the intersection here, but let's say this B dash is an intersection. What is special about these B dash people? Okay, B dash people are a subset of your targeting that Facebook thinks is relevant to your brand. So these B dash people are also readers of Scoop Whoop. There is a certain intersection. So let's say you've run a different ad here to Scoop Whoop people. Facebook has done, that pocketing again, and done the testing, and eventually Facebook has optimized your ad towards, again, a B dash direction. And this B dash direction kind of shares 40% of its audience with the Hindustan Times readers audience. So both of these audiences eventually will, both of these ad sets, if they're running, they will eventually face an audience overlap. This is what an audience overlap